He lived alone for 5 years until his dead brother's pregnant wife found him. Western romance story. The knock on the cabin door came during the worst snowstorm Ethan Walker had seen in years. He hadn't spoken to another soul in months. For 5 long years, he had buried himself in silence, hiding from the world, from his past, and from the guilt that followed him like a shadow. But when he opened that door, everything changed. Standing in the snow was the last person he ever expected to see. His dead brother's pregnant wife. Before we begin this emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring more heart-touching stories like this to life. The wind howled across the Wyoming mountains as Ethan stared at the woman standing before him. Snow covered her coat and dark hair. Her face looked exhausted, pale, and frightened. One hand rested protectively over her swollen belly while the other clutched a worn leather bag. For a moment, Ethan wondered if he was dreaming. 5 years earlier, everything he loved had died on a lonely stretch of road. His younger brother Caleb had been more than family. He had been Ethan's best friend. Together they had grown up on their father's ranch, surviving droughts, hard winters, and financial struggles. Caleb was the bright one, the hopeful one. Wherever he went, laughter followed. Then came the accident. A truck driver lost control during a storm. Caleb never made it home. The tragedy shattered the Walker family. Their father passed away from illness less than a year later. Their mother moved away to live with relatives. Friends tried to help Ethan, but grief consumed him. The worst part was the guilt. On the day Caleb died, Ethan had been supposed to drive with him. At the last minute, he chose not to go. That decision haunted him every day. Believing he no longer deserved happiness, Ethan sold most of the ranch and disappeared into the mountains. He built a small cabin far from town and spent years living alone. Days became months. Months became years. The loneliness became normal. Until now. The woman standing before him was Sarah, Caleb's widow. The woman Ethan had not seen since the funeral. Shock froze him in place. Sarah looked at him with tired eyes. Her face carried years of pain. Without saying much, she nearly collapsed from exhaustion. Instinct took over. Ethan pulled her inside. The cabin was small but warm. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace while snow pounded against the windows. Sarah sat quietly near the fire. For several minutes neither spoke. The silence felt heavy. 5 years of unanswered questions sat between them. Finally, Ethan learned why she had come. Life had not been kind to Sarah after Caleb's death. She had tried to rebuild her life. She moved to another state. Worked several jobs. Fought loneliness every day. Then she met someone who seemed trustworthy. Someone who promised stability. Someone who promised love. But promises are easy to make. Months earlier, that man had abandoned her after learning she was pregnant. Sarah suddenly found herself alone again. No family. No support. No place to go. While sorting through old boxes, she found letters Caleb had written before his death. In one letter, he described Ethan as the strongest man he knew. A man who would always protect the people he loved. Those words stayed with her. When life became unbearable, she remembered them. And somehow, after all those years, she found Ethan. That night, as the storm raged outside, Ethan prepared a simple meal. Sarah barely touched her food. The exhaustion in her eyes told a story deeper than words. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something awaken inside him. Purpose. Responsibility. Human connection. The next morning, he expected Sarah to leave. She didn't. The roads were buried under snow. The nearest town was impossible to reach. Days passed. Then another week. Gradually, the cabin stopped feeling empty. Sarah helped with chores despite Ethan's protests. She cleaned, cooked, and repaired old curtains. Small touches of life appeared throughout the cabin. Things Ethan had stopped noticing years ago. One afternoon he returned from chopping wood and found fresh wildflowers arranged in an old glass jar. The sight hit him unexpectedly. The cabin suddenly felt less like a prison, and more like a home. As winter continued, they slowly began sharing pieces of their past. Not through dramatic conversations. Not through grand confessions. But through small moments. Stories around the fire. Memories while preparing meals. Quiet walks beneath falling snow. Sarah spoke about Caleb often. At first, Ethan found it painful. Every memory reopened old wounds. But eventually something changed. Instead of guilt, he began feeling gratitude. Gratitude for having known his brother. Gratitude for the years they shared. For the first time in half a decade, Caleb's memory brought warmth instead of suffering. Meanwhile, Sarah began seeing a side of Ethan few people ever knew. Beneath the rough beard and quiet nature was a deeply caring man. A man who woke before sunrise to make sure the cabin stayed warm. A man who secretly repaired her boots after noticing they were worn. A man who spent hours clearing dangerous paths through snow so she could walk safely. His kindness wasn't loud. It lived in actions. And those actions slowly built trust. As spring approached, the mountains transformed. Snow melted. Rivers flowed again. Fields turned green. With the changing season came a new challenge. Sarah's pregnancy was entering its final months. The nearest hospital was far away. Medical visits became more frequent. Ethan drove her whenever needed. At first, the trips felt awkward. But over time they became something both secretly looked forward to. Hours on the road gave them opportunities to talk. To laugh. To heal. One evening, after returning from town, Sarah noticed an old photograph sitting on Ethan's shelf. It showed two young brothers standing beside horses on the family ranch. Both smiling. Both dreaming about the future. The picture captured a version of Ethan that no longer existed. Or so he thought. As the months passed, that version slowly returned. His laughter became more frequent. His eyes no longer looked empty. Neighbors in nearby towns began recognizing him again. People who had assumed he vanished forever were shocked to see him smiling. For the first time in years, Ethan felt connected to the world. Then came the night everything changed. A summer thunderstorm rolled across the mountains. Lightning flashed. Rain hammered the roof. Sarah went into labor. The nearest hospital was nearly 2 hours away. Roads were dangerous. Fear filled the cabin. Ethan remained calm. He loaded the truck and carefully drove through the storm. Every mile felt endless. Every thunderclap increased the tension. All he could think about was keeping Sarah safe. Memories of losing Caleb flooded his mind. He couldn't bear the thought of losing someone else. When they finally reached the hospital, relief washed over him. Hours later, a healthy baby girl entered the world. Ethan stood outside the room staring through the glass window. The tiny child slept peacefully in her mother's arms. For reasons he couldn't explain, tears filled his eyes. The sight felt like hope itself. A new beginning. A reminder that life continues even after unimaginable loss. Several days later, Sarah surprised him. She revealed the baby's name. Grace. Because she believed Grace was what had carried both of them through their darkest years. The name felt perfect. Life settled into a new rhythm. The baby brought joy wherever she went. The cabin that once echoed with silence now overflowed with laughter, crying, and tiny footsteps. Ethan found himself embracing responsibilities he never expected. Late-night feedings. Rocking chairs. Baby blankets. Simple moments became precious. Grace adored him. Whenever he entered a room, her face lit up. The bond formed naturally. Without force. Without expectation. Watching them together filled Sarah with emotion. For the first time since Caleb's death, she felt safe. Truly safe. Years passed. The friendship between Ethan and Sarah deepened. Neither planned it. Neither expected it. It simply happened. Love grew quietly. Like wildflowers after winter. Not replacing the past. Not erasing Caleb's memory. But building something new from the broken pieces left behind. Yet both struggled with guilt. Sarah worried loving Ethan meant betraying Caleb. Ethan feared his feelings dishonored his brother. Those fears remained unspoken for a long time. Until one autumn evening. The sun painted the mountains gold. Grace played nearby in the grass. Sarah watched Ethan helping the little girl build a tiny wooden toy. The scene stirred something powerful inside her. She realized Caleb would have loved seeing this. He would have wanted happiness for both of them. Not endless suffering. Not loneliness. Happiness. That realization changed everything. Months later, Ethan visited his brother's grave for the first time in years. The cemetery sat on a hillside overlooking the valley. Wind moved gently through the grass. For a long time he stood silently. Remembering. Grieving. Healing. He thought about the years he wasted hiding from life. He thought about Sarah. About Grace. About second chances. When he finally left the cemetery, something inside him felt lighter. The burden he'd carried for 5 years was finally gone. That winter, surrounded by falling snow, Ethan asked Sarah to spend the rest of her life with him. There was no grand audience. No expensive ring. Just honesty. Just love. Just two wounded hearts that had helped each other heal. Sarah's tears answered before words could. The wedding took place the following spring. Friends traveled from neighboring towns. Old family members returned. The small ceremony overlooked the mountains. The same mountains that once witnessed Ethan's loneliness. Now they witnessed his happiness. As Sarah walked toward him, carrying years of resilience and courage, Ethan felt overwhelming gratitude. Not because life had been easy. But because it hadn't. The struggles had shaped them. The pain had taught them compassion. The heartbreak had shown them the value of love. Years later, people in town often spoke about the Walker family. They saw a hardworking rancher. A loving wife. A cheerful daughter. What they didn't always see were the scars beneath the smiles. The lonely winters. The grief. The years of darkness. But those scars remained part of their story. Proof that healing is possible. Proof that broken lives can be rebuilt. Proof that hope sometimes arrives when you least expect it. Sometimes it arrives during a snowstorm. Sometimes it knocks on your door. And sometimes it comes carrying a child and asking for help. Before this story ends, tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? We'd love to see how many different countries are joining this emotional journey together. As Ethan watched Grace run through the ranch field,